Well, we have a guest speaker with us this evening. Sean has always been appreciative of his time that he puts on and with the things that he does and the time he spends with our community as well. I think that there's a couple of things we need to be talking about for this evening that I think is interesting. And I wanted to put up a couple of things to take a look at on this, if I might, Sean, for us to take a look at. Well, first of all, before I even do that, tell me what's going on. We had a problem that happened in El Camino High School yesterday. That was an interesting adventure. We're having more problems that are going on, I think, with robberies and at gunpoint over at the Topanga Plaza. We've had some problems with some vagrants that have been going into some of the houses and doing some things around they should be doing. What's the status for our committee? What's going on, Sean? And what's should we be afraid or not afraid? And where are we?
So good evening, thank you, Johnny, for inviting me. Thank you, board members, for having me on board. Real quick, a little bit about myself. My name is Sean Dinse. I'm the senior lead officer for the east portion of Woodland Hills, which is pretty much Victory Boulevard to a little bit of Van Owen, but Victory Boulevard to the north, up to the county line to the south, Corbin to the east, and Topanga Canyon to the west. I'm responsible for neighborhood watch. I'm responsible for crime concerns, issues, nuisance activity, criminal activity, and being a liaison for the community. As the world turns in LAPD and Woodland Hills, what you described are, everyday life, sadly, and unfortunately for our community. We have these issues because criminals do exist. We have these issues because people with drug addictions and mental health issues are running around on the streets. So, and criminals are in our backyards, in our front yards, and everywhere else. So, yeah, what you described are some of the things that are going on. Just to touch base with what happened yesterday over at El Camino. A 911 call came into Glendale, actually. And in fact, I believe it was Glendale Traffic Enforcement. And I don't know if they have a separate line or what, but they forwarded that information to CHP. CHP forwarded that information to LAPD, and it was a threat against the school that an unknown person was going to go to the school with a gun. Then we received additional information, and I think a little information got mixed up, but I think a student contacted 911 and then generated another call and kind of escalated it. Actually, first it was a bomb. I apologize. First was a bomb threat, and then it turned into there's someone with a possible gun entering the campus. So I'm not sure where it came, whether it was the actual person that called in to dispatch, and or whether it was one of the students that called it in, kind of escalating it, not knowing what was going on. So what happened yesterday was El Camino lockdown. LAPD and school police resources responded. Due to the nature of the threat, we searched the entire school. The school went into lockdown. Some of the concerns that were brought forward from some of the staff and parents was lack of communication to them to find out what was going on, what the status of the situation. One of the things I brought up to staff was, at least one of the staff members was, it would be in their best interest to, if something does happen on the school campus, is that they have someone outside of the school campus actually forward that information, on social media or whatever platform they have to reach out to the parents so they can get real-time information. Obviously, we searched the schools and we didn't find anything. But what happens is, by nature, this is a community that's connected, and so when you have a community that's connected with other kids in other schools, when social media and all these other social apps start putting out information, it causes panic, and that panic creates a little bit of chaos, and so now we have to try to control that chaos and bring light to what was going on.
It looked a little bit disorganized as we looked as to what was going on. Were they as prepared? Was the school as prepared as what they should be on this, or should there be more outreach that's going on to actually educate and do more to work with them?
So I believe they had a lockdown drill within the week.
That's what I heard.
yeah, they had a lockdown drill, which is good. But it's also scary too to go from a lockdown drill to the real thing, but then you don't know what you're hiding from, right? Or what you're locking down from. So that was what happened yesterday. Listen, this is an ongoing learning curve. This is a reality that, within the last 20 years that our kids, less than 20 years that our kids have now had, to learn all this stuff, and it's scary stuff. So, they did the best with what they had, but, obviously you take every event and you learn from it. So that's what happened yesterday. And there's been other businesses that are getting bomb threats, like the Marriott Hilton or Marriott Hotel on Ventura Boulevard in Alhama by Trader Joe's. They've been getting multiple bomb threats, or threats that someone's gonna go shoot up their business. And so, and especially they're calling from computers, so we're not able to track back where it's coming from, the number or who the person is, or GPS or anything. So then you're left with, is this real, or do we just ignore it and move on, because it's ongoing? And then what if something bad happens? Well, should have done something about it. So yeah, this is kind of becoming a common thing in the area.
Does it seem to you that there's an uptick that's going on in criminal activity around here, or has it just always been this way and we just are hearing more about it because we're more connected now?
Well, we had a increase in violent crime last year, so we've had an uptick in violent crime. Now, with the start of the new year, the crime stats start all over again, because we compare crime stats to last year. So it's really hard to tell whether we're seeing another increase or not. But I would imagine, since we started off with one of the highest numbers of increase in violent crimes last year, that we're going to kind of follow the same suit.
Talk to us about the homeless issues. I noticed that on our website there is a letter that was generated from LAPD over to the councilman's office to change the signage over at Clarendon, so that there'd be no overnight parking that's there. I went by there this afternoon, and those signs are in fact up. I noticed there was only 3 RVs over there. There is one major trashy area that's on the south side that's right behind the hotel that's there. Talk to us about that. What is going on with that signage issue? How did that come about? And what kind of response you get out of the council office? And what do you think?
So there is signs there, but it's just, and I actually I believe it's those signs that I actually got way, I want to say 10 years ago, for no overnight parking. But what my request was then, and is again now, is not just no overnight parking from 10 o'clock to 5 a.m. It's that no overnight parking 10 a.m. or 10 p.m. to 5 a.m. towway. That's the important part. We don't have the towway over there right now. So what Johnny's speaking about is Clarendon Street, that runs along the 101 freeway between Commercio by the Porsche dealership and Alhama, which is by Trader Joe's. In fact, you can go as far as Peralta, which is over by HQ Pub. That stretch of street has kind of attracted the homeless population, and we've seen an increase in drug addiction, criminal activity, and mental health issues over there, including the nuisance activity of the sidewalks being blocked, and trash, large quantities of trash, including human feces and other bulky items. There's been multiple cleanups over there. So the idea behind the letter was submitted by LAPD Topanga Division, was that we're requesting overnight parking towway on that street, because there's no reason why anyone should be on that street at nighttime, due to the surrounding businesses being impacted and affected by the criminal activity caused by the population in that area. And we've also asked for the councilman's office to submit for signage of 4118 LAMC, 41.118C LAMC, which establishes that they cannot, signs that would establish that they can't camp within 500 feet of that location on the public sidewalk.
What's been the response from the council's office on that? I'm surprised those signs are not up. That letter was done back in January.
No, those signs have been there for quite a while now.
No, I'm talking about your press request for the new signs.
Yeah, the new signs would be the towaway. So I actually spoke with Keith Banks today from Councilman Blumenfield's office, and I guess Seth Samuels was sent the request, but he's been out of, I guess he's on bond and leave, and so so he has not been in the office. So I don't know if he's received it or not. So Keith Banks was not aware of it. So Keith Banks is acting on it now. So we'll see how long that takes since he just received it today.
What do you expect to have happen over there as far as the towaway is concerned? I mean, towaway and RV takes a big deal. I don't know that we have all the equipment from LAPD to be able to do that and get those things out of there. When these people are setting them on fire because they just want to get rid of them or don't want.
Well, so we have our LAPD policy that obviously respects those that are living in their vehicle, but it kind of falls on me to track criminal and nuisance activity, and then establish that if a motorhome or a vehicle a person's using is involved in criminal or nuisance activity, that I would have to articulate the reason why I would want to impound it. And so having the authority to tow based on the signage that's there, and coupled with tracking the activity, criminal nuisance activity, I would be able to articulate that. It's just a case-by-case basis on each vehicle.
Do you actually have the abilities to tow those vehicles out of there if it's properly signed?
Yeah, like I said, when I write a report pertaining to those that are living on the streets, usually it's about 4 or 5 pages long.
Well, I noticed that there's only, like I said, only a couple of them that are there now. A week ago or so, maybe 2 weeks ago, it was loaded. I mean, the whole street was completely loaded with them. What's changed? What happened? What did you guys do, or what
what
occurred?
Well, I think it's from different angles. LAPD narcotic division or narcotic unit has been conducting surveillance of the area. Number one, I've arrested a couple people. I've cited a few people over there for blocking the sidewalk and or blocking public right of way. I arrested someone last week for possession of fentanyl, and he had a felony warrant for assault with a deadly weapon. So, and coupled with the cleanups, I believe we've had 7 or 8 cleanups, major cleanups over there of trash. And so, and per Keith Banks today, he advised that he's been able to place some of the people that were living there into permanent housing or temporary housing. So I think the combination of all those city resources working together have assisted with it, but it's been a long time. I think we're going over 1.5 years now with this encampment, and I think it almost came from technically we're pushing it around. So originally it was over there on Ventura Boulevard. It was on Woodlake. It was on Ventura Woodlake. It was on Ventura Boulevard in front of the Target. It went over to Del Valle, and then it came over to now Clarendon.
So
and a lot of them are the same people.
Yeah, the reality is they keep moving. You come in and give them a
Yep.
hard time in one place, and they move over to another place.
Yep.
It's kind of whack-a-mole seems to be coming up as the major thing to it. Looks like we have a question from Andrew. Andrew, go with your question. You're unmuted. Andrew Adlin, you should be unmuted. Go ahead with your question. Have to
Hello?
unmute. Yeah, go ahead, Andrew. What's your question?
Hi, good evening. John, first question is for you. It's actually a request. Now that we have Sean Dinse on, would it be possible to have a future meeting with Blumenfield on also, so that he can be presented with actual LAPD facts and we can actually hear him try to respond to actual facts dealing with homeless and the amount of crime that's created? And
Got you on that, Andrew. Yeah, that's something that we can end up doing. I know I'd reached out to the council office, just an email that probably got buried with some of my longer emails to Bob, asking if somebody would come on to explain what was going to go on concerning the letter that was sent over. So we'll see what happens with that as time goes on to it. But yes, I think we'll do that. It's a question of where we fit those things in and see what we can do with that. I do want to go to something else that had come up with, and let's see if I'm going to be able to share my screen here with you and come up with something that I need to take a look at here. Sean, you're able to see the no trespass sign up on the
Yeah.
screen? Tell us about this and what this is all about. I think some of the property owners need to recognize there is some things that they can do in order to be of help to themselves and of help to the community too. Talk to us about this sign.
So this sign in itself is a nonverbal message to anyone that would, a nonverbal message that would be posted on the exterior of your property or on a fence of your property, which establishes that this is private property and that anyone that would enter that property to interfere or cause issues, that they could be arrested for no trespassing. The 4124A is actually a Los Angeles Municipal Code section that is referring to a trespass authorization letter. And a trespass authorization letter is a notice that would be signed by the business saying and establishing that I am the responsible person. This is it right here that you're looking at, that I'm the responsible person for this property. And it could be a property manager, it could be the owner of the business, it could be an employee of the business that would be the acting agent on behalf of the property. And that if a person enters their property, whether posted or unposted, that they could be arrested for trespassing. Now, the part for there's subsections of 4124, and the subsection, you have an A, B, and C section. And in regards to the subsection, when it talks to addresses open to the general public, what businesses need to know is, like, for instance, Trader Joe's. If a person goes into Trader Joe's and steals from there, any business can refuse service. That trespass authorization letter would act as if it was like the private person arresting the person, especially if they've been told, sorry, you're no longer allowed to do business in this location. You can be arrested if you come back to this location. Now, the 4124, it references only, that, person can leave within 24 hours or they can't come back for 24 hours, but 602.1 PC. And this is what I need business owners to know, or just people in general that are responsible for property, is that if somebody comes on your property and interferes with your business, a person could be arrested for trespassing. Now, you have a person that you've warned, told, hey, I'm sorry, you can't be here. There's a sign in front, and they stole from you, or they caused some kind of chaos on your property, and due to that problem, you want that person arrested. What I like to business owners to know is that the only way we establish that somebody's interfered with their business is documentation. And so it's important for that business owner to document dates and times of specific incidents that have occurred, so they can refer back to it. So when they're establishing the actual crime itself and placing that person under private person's arrest, in fact, LAPD takes arrest, you're not going to place them in handcuffs. We're going to take that person in custody. You're going to demand a private person's arrest, and we'll write the report, but having that information of prior knowledge or prior history helps with articulating the crime of interfering with the business.
Yeah, be aware that it's now called the private person arrest. It used to be called citizen's arrest, if you will. I guess they got rid of the citizen issue because you don't have to be a citizen to make the arrest. So private person arrest basically is when the police officer is not there, but you see a crime being committed in your presence. But the documentation is everything. You don't want to be requesting that to be done and then have somebody turn around and sue you because you've got basically a false arrest or a false imprisonment issue. That's sort of the key to it. So you got to make sure that documentation is there. Sean is right on with that, and that's the detail. Documentation, photographs, especially all the stuff you've got, and that's important.
And most corporations, that's what they're concerned about, is liability, right? When they're afraid to tell someone for whatever reason they don't want the liability of someone turning around and suing them. But if you have the documentation, your word against their word is not going to work, right? And especially in civil and civil liability, and even criminal liability, is that your word against their word is not going to work. But if you have evidence of that prior history, video, pictures, things establish your case, then you're going to have no problems. But it's when you don't have that.
Is it customary for you, if you respond out to such a call to you, that you can actually look at that evidence and see whether or not the person is really has got sufficient stuff for you to really do something with, as opposed to they're going to get themselves in trouble?
Yeah, 100%. And that's where I'll meet with the business owner and or somebody to really help them articulate, or help them, bring this together so that they could present a solid case. On top of that, what I find a majority of the time is they'll communicate with me a little bit and then they'll drop off, and then I kind of lose touch with what's going on, and then they come back at me later and say, well, all these things have been going on, we wanted to stop. Well, should have stayed in communication with me. So really at the end of the day, it's articulation, and if you can articulate a private person's arrest, and the end game of that for us, and especially for criminal prosecution, is I work with a neighborhood prosecutor in our office. Her name is Karen Phillips, and I'm sure she would love to come speak with the homeowners organization.
She was supposed to come tonight, but she had another commitment, so she wasn't able to come tonight. But she was
great.
invited.
But if she can come and speak, she'll explain the court process. But one of the things I ask for when it comes to stayaways is or for trespass is a stay away. So I'll request a 500-yard stay away from the property, and if they violate that, I can actually arrest them again for violating their probation.
Yeah, I take it you're available to come to, if a business is starting to find problems like that, you're able to come out and basically let them know what they need to be doing. And it sounds like the first step is to fill out the letter that we have. And I'll post that up on our website. It'll be up tomorrow, along with posting the sign on your property as well to give them notice. And then as they begin to do it, properly document and then get you guys on the line and to stop this stuff, because otherwise we're giving up our neighborhood, and I don't think anybody wants to do that. That's not the intent of this. No. We're compassionate, but this is different. This is not having to do anything with compassion.
So, and just add one more thing to that.
Please.
When people describe a suspect, you're describing descriptors, right? You're given height, the weight, what they're wearing, their descent, and that's great and everything. That doesn't help us solve crimes, and so what I'm asking business owners to do is take pictures, show me video, and that's where that communication part of working with me is important, because what the goal is I'm going to tell you what their names are, right? Especially those that are preying on the businesses like Ralph's or Trader Joe's. And Trader Joe's has been outstanding. They've been doing everything they can to help solve this. Target recently reached out to, same thing, is I'll tell them their name. So when a crime report comes to us and we see the suspect information, instead of a suspect description, which could be anyone, it actually is by name, and now we have something to work off with.
Marty, you got a question for Sean? Go ahead.
Yeah. Hi, Sean. How you doing?
Hey, Marty. Good. How are you?
There's nothing like the reaction of having a live law enforcement officer on the spot. And I know you guys are really very stretched thin, and too thin to constantly monitor this area, and it's taxing on police power. Is there any way, any hope of having the LAPD assign uniformed police cadets to provide greater police presence in this area during business hours?
Well, the problem with cadets is majority of them are juveniles, so they're in school. I mean, it's something that we can, look for or look into for the future. Remember though too, is that they're out there by themselves, and so if we put two cadets at a corner and they get confronted by, someone with mental health issues or drug addiction issues, and they confront them, then they can get hurt out there. So especially being in uniform, because anything associated with LAPD, unfortunately, is a target in some people's minds. So we don't want to just throw those kids out there for the sake of throwing them out there. At the mall, a little bit different. We use them at the mall, specific places where there's a lot of where they can be monitored with officers. But at the same time, it's hard to just place them out into the street and have them as a visible deterrent.
Shelley, you've got a question too. Go ahead with your question. You have to unmute yourself.
Yes. Hi. Thank you,
Hi,
Sean,
Shelley.
for being here tonight. I was hoping maybe you could explain to everyone. I know you worked really hard to help identify the locations for the 4118 no encampments, and the signs have gone up. But can you explain to us what you can really do, what LAPD can really do, for example, near Taft on Winnetka, you know, the 818 is coming, the extended stay is coming. And our councilman has promised us, you know, big zones, no encampment zones. And right now we have 4118, but we still get encampments under the freeway. What is LAPD allowed to do? Because I know city council has put a whole bunch of restrictions on enforcement of 4118.
So the example I would give you is what's happening right now on Clarendon Street, right? I mean, there are violations of the municipal code happening. You know, and we still haven't been able to get rid of it because you have to do the outpouring of resources first, right? The outreach by LASA or any of the other city entities that are going to try to get them housed. They have to make multiple attempts to get out there. While at the same time, I have to give multiple warnings and track those warnings as a means of documentation for my any citation or arrest that I make. And then that doesn't necessarily make the trash go away either. That's collected from these encampments. And so then I have to put in a request for hopefully sanitation, Care Plus or Care teams to go out there and clean up the trash. But in the case of Clarendon, you have, I believe, they're either on their 7th or 8th full cleanups over there. And what happens is when they post a cleanup, they post a date that they're going to clean up the area. So what does the population do? They load up their shopping carts, take their stuff around the corner. They clean up the area. It's kind of like house or room service. And then they take their shopping carts right back, and we're right back to square one again. So now, after I've warned them a few times and I've identified them, number one is the first thing I have to do, and warn them. Then I can issue a citation. The citation is usually goes out about 1 month to 2 months out for court. And so by the time it goes to court, then I get a warrant. If they don't show up to court, once that warrant is issued, then I can actually go arrest the person for violation of whatever that is, that municipal code. But once again, I don't deal with the trash. Sanitation is responsible for that. So it doesn't go away. So as much as I would love to say that, especially around, say, Taft High School, that we can make these encampments go away. And another thing just to add to that, because I just thought about it, and I think I sent you an email on this, is when the temperature dips under 50 degrees and or if it's raining, I can't conduct enforcement. So, and they don't need to put their tents down per 5611 LAMC. Because technically they're supposed to put their tents down between the hours of, I believe it's 8 o'clock till 7 or 8 a.m. till 5 p.m. or 7. It's some window of time they're supposed to put their tent down. But even if I give them a ticket for that, the problem doesn't go away. It's still there. And if the person chooses to be there and they refuse services, then there's not much we can do, and we have to wait it out until I can get them arrested and get a stay away order from that area.
Well, it sounds like this is almost an insurmountable problem no matter what. You're doing the best that you can with it, but that's sort of like all you can do. And that's it. Hands are tied. You're running around with all these things going on. And like you said, it's whack-a-mole. They move from one location to the other location until we get them off the street, if that can happen. And as you've said to us, I think, and you're the great teacher to us, this is not a housing issue. A lot of these people do not want to be housed. They're quite happy to be out where they are. They want to be out and camping with their own little locations. I know when downtown by the courthouse, I saw the same thing happen. They moved them across the street, to clean off one side, and by noontime, they've moved all their stuff back over. They had people that were almost like a mayor of the little town that kind of had decided who was going to get the best spots around and was watching out for security and other things that are going on. And also, again, I think you gave us a great reminder too, that we have to recognize that when we encounter any of the homeless people that are there, you have to assume that they're armed. And it turns out that they're not armed because they want to do harm to you necessarily, but also to protect themselves and the other ones that are out there. So that assumption was kind of shocking to me. You feel that you can come up and try to be compassionate to somebody and be talking with them, but you don't know if that person has got a mental problem or not, and is going to all of a sudden just snap And that snap in an instant can change your life as well as theirs too. So it needs
Yeah.
to be something we have to spend a great deal of time with. And hopefully as this year goes on with it, Sean, the work that you're doing, and maybe we can um, light some fires, if you will, under the council office and get some more things done too. We're here to try to help with that. Nobody in the community wants us to be this way. We certainly don't as the homeowners organization. We certainly don't want this to be falling on your shoulders to this degree. And we want to be able to pick up the load we can too. And I think.
And can I just add a couple of side notes, please, before?
Please, please. Oh, absolutely.
So just an FYI. So you have the 818 right now hotel that's under construction for the permanent housing. You also have the extended stay that's been shut down. And now there's a property management company managing that place. It's not a city of Los Angeles entity. It's Beachfront Properties Management Company is managing that location right now, because all those people that were inside that location who could not be evicted due to the administrative order caused by the COVID pandemic, they can't evict anyone. So there are some concerns that there's some criminal and narcotic activity, prostitution occurring at this location that's being unchecked. And until I believe it's HACLA takes it over and turns it over to the service provider that's supposed to monitor it. So until that time frame, until those evictions happen, or until they do the build out or take possession of it for build out, it will be monitored by this property management company who has minimal control. And then the other side note I have, actually, if you want to ask a question on that side note.
Well, yeah, I do have a question. Is there anything we can do about that at this point? It seems like with the neighborhood prosecutor should be able to get them, especially if there's criminal activity there. One of the exceptions to evictions has to do with criminal activity that's in a location. That's a requirement for the landlord to get rid of those people.
But not under the administrative order, because the administrative order stopped all evictions. So until the pandemic administrative order is lifted, they said they are not going to be able to do evictions until March, April, May timeframe. I'm not even sure if they know what that timeframe is.
Yeah, I'll take a look at that too. I thought there was an exception on that, Sean, but listen, its hands are tied is the problem to it. And that's just nuts to think that if there's criminal activity going on, that you can't force the landlord to get rid of those people, get them out of there.
Yep.
That's a danger to the other people that are living there.
And remember too, is the city of Los Angeles, shoot, what's that unit? The unit that was doing the nuisance abatement, the CNAP unit,
Yes,
the
yes.
Community Nuisance Abatement Program, they had drafted a letter for them to abide by certain conditions. So technically, it's not under court conditions per se, but the city has already given it the previous owners extended stay conditions to follow. So I believe those same conditions should follow suit for this location, because they never lifted it or took it away or amended it.
Well, we got some work to do on our side then too on that one as well then. Any other items that you want to bring to our attention? That I did not know about that.
You have a hand raised there on the attendees.
I do. Let me find out who we got a hand raised here. It looks like it is, who do we have here? Andres, go ahead. You're unmuted. It's Andres Gonanez, if I could read my thing here. You're unmuted.
Oh. Yeah, I'm Andrew Adlin.
Okay, go ahead. I'm sorry, Andrew. Go ahead.
Okay, so Sean, with the extended stay coming in, Project Home Key and the other hotel coming in, being converted, and your experience dealing with possible residents coming in, what do we get to look forward to as far as crime increases? Exactly what is the outlook for us here?
So
As far as
I'm not
changing
going to say that every person that's going to enter this location is a bad person, right? Because there are people that actually need help and want help. The problem that you run into are individuals. And it just takes one individual, just like one individual calling in a bomb threat to a school to cause chaos in an area, right? Whether someone's having a mental health crisis, someone's having a drug addiction, crisis, it takes one individual. So depending on how they monitor or control the population inside these locations, will I guess reflect what's going to happen on the outside. But at the same time, what happens on the outside of these locations are not going to be controlled, and they're not going to be held accountable to that population as they're moving in and out of these locations. So there is a chance we're going to have issues, as there are at some of the other locations that we have in the division. And what happens too is a lot of the population within there is impacted and affected by one person or multiple people that are causing chaos in there, and so they're forced to move out or concerned for their safety. So then I have to see what we can do to address that. But at the same time, I don't know if these service providers want to work with us anyway. So they probably won't be given as much information in the first place because they don't. There's not much of a relationship between law enforcement and some of these service providers.
Well, we have to be as much eyes and ears then for you as well as for the community to try to help with that as well. You've been a great servant to the community here. God bless you for the work that you do. It's absolutely amazing. You've always been around and very generous with your time and surprisingly very open with all the opinions and the information too. Unlike some of the
not opinions.
Well, excuse me, not opinions. Yes, that's correct. We've learned that there's no opinions that are given, but
more attendees questions here.
We need to move on to get to the stuff on the 818 at this point in time. We do have a whole bunch of questions. Let's see if we hit them real quickly here. Heath Klein, go ahead. Let's get real quick here on these. We got to get to more stuff tonight. Heath, go ahead.
Thanks, John. My question for Sean, is because of the next thing that we're going to be discussing on the agenda tonight. Can you tell me, I know it's on the west side of Topanga, that's not your jurisdiction, but can you tell me how safe the pedestrian bridge is over the 101 between Duvalier and Avenue San Luis?
I would, I hate taking away something from the community, especially if it's access to, their community. But I've never liked those bridges. I don't like the tunnels either, just because they're cut throughs for those on the streets. So I've been a little concerned about that ped bridge, and I think, to be honest with you, I think it should be closed. But I don't know if I have the criminal and nuisance activity documented to actually close that. So,
Bob Singer, you're unmuted. Go ahead, Bob. What's your question?
Yeah. Hey, Sean.
Sure.
Back to the 818. I know you guys are really stretched thin, but do you feel that you'll have additional patrolling going on once that does open and the extended stay, especially, I would think when school lets out, you're going to have a combination of kids that head toward Chick-fil-A. And that's a problem for those guys too, always. But do you think you guys will be able to have additional patrol out there at those times?
Well, when the ordinance for the permanent housing were established by the city of Los Angeles, part of the agreement was that they were supposed to provide LAPD 24-hour around the clock patrol inside and outside. So it's that's gonna depend on the city on whether they're gonna provide that, and usually it's on an overtime basis.
Elizabeth, you're unmuted. Go with your question. Elizabeth, you can unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Thank you.
Go ahead. We got you.
Okay. My question, and it may not apply here, is about the housing that's going in by Woodlake and Ventura that we talked about the other night, and how that might impact some of the issues that were discussed earlier.
So I think if we pay attention to what's going to happen over on Winnetka and Ventura with the extended stay in 818, that will be reflective of what's going to happen probably there.
Okay, we have one more. This one, if I've got this correct, is from Andres. If you unmute yourself, go ahead.
Hi, how you doing? Yeah, this question is for Sean. So how you doing, Sean?
Hi, Andre.
So quick question. So we've been having a little bit of an issue of homeless people going up to top of Winnetka, and they've been hanging out at the trails. What would you say would be the appropriate protocol for the neighbors, and what would be the correct approach in order to, if we're having this continued issue?
So what, like I kind of brought up earlier, was that, you know, giving me a description of a person walking up to a pathway without an identity is not going to help me solve the problem. So a picture of the person, and more than likely I'll contact this person in the field. And if when I finally contact this person in the field, I'll be able to communicate with them and let them know that they cannot be up there. Really, that's the only way to solve that problem. I mean, and you hope that they'll listen, but at the same time, I know summertime comes, fires becomes a huge issue, and I know we have some red flag laws and some other laws with municipal code that we can actually conduct enforcement if they are up there during red flag days.
Sean, we'd like to get you back out with the neighborhood prosecutor too, I think, and go through a lot of the stuff and give us a real serious education on what things we can end up doing. Again, thank you for your service to the community. Thank you for your time that's there. Please be safe out there, and always feel free to let us know what things we can do to help you and whatever ways you might possibly need.
You guys already do it. Thank you, Johnny.